advancement by mutual cooperation. There is no consideration of personal beauty or the disruption of so-called love. In the material world, there is no question of love. Marriage is actually a duty performed in mutual cooperation as directed in the authoritative scriptures for spiritual advancement. Therefore, marriage is essential in order to avoid the life of cats and dogs who are not meant for spiritual enlightenment. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurmritam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Darsha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Visakha Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneswari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpataru Vyascha Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you so much for joining this wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam Sangha in the morning, and what a great day to start with, beautiful day of spring. And here there is a discussion around a very powerful topic, and Srila Prabhupada has put his purport with so much of understanding of the Varnashram Dharma that it is very interesting to discuss today. So thank you for joining. So here, Kashyapa Muni is referring to one of the questions of his wife, his good wife Diti, and here he is referring to certain things, and all these things are happening in a recursive loop. As you all know, this is an understanding, this is a discussion between Vidurji and Maitreya Muni, and within that there is Sukadev Goswami, who is coming in right in the first verse of this chapter, and within the reference of that there is the discussion between Diti, the wife of Kashyapa Muni, and Kashyapa. So here, just to give a background, Diti doesn't have any kids now, and in the meantime, she is interested to beget some kids, and Kashyapa Muni is a very conscious person. So in this chapter, Diti wants to get pregnant, and she is trying to seek relationship from Kashyapa Muni, and just some prior verses, there is advancement from Diti, and here in this verse, Kashyapa Muni is referring to Diti in this context. So what is the context here? Here, Kashyapa Muni is saying that wife is the better half of the man's body. So what does that mean actually? And also the second thing which is talked about is the wife helps the husband in entrusting spiritual responsibilities without anxiety. So these are the two prominent themes which is coming out of this verse. Wife is the better half of the man's body, and then wife helps in the spiritual advancement of husband without any anxiety. So two beautiful contexts we're going to discuss today. So why is wife referred to as the better half? Most of the time in English, we have used that connotation very often. Wife is the better half. But our spiritual injunction means something else. So what it says is when Brahmaji created this universe, he created, he created, 4 Kumaras. He wanted to have them beget the child. They wanted to seek knowledge, transcendental knowledge, so they didn't go into the path of the advancement. They wanted to advance in the knowledge acquisition process, so they did not seek to get child. Then he created Rudra, and Rudra created some unavoidable situations. And then Brahmaji realized that from my body I have given so many men, but I have been very unhappy with how the procreation of this world is happening. So I'm going to create from my other half another species, and that species happens to be the woman. And so from one half you have some of the personalities who came, and then from Brahmaji, our acharyas have mentioned, from Brahmaji, when all the other species came and they didn't help procreate this universe, the understanding was, I have to create another person from my same body, from the other half of my body, wherein there will be additional help in procreating this generations and generations, and then she should help in the process of procreation to help the spiritual process. So it is mentioned that woman is the better half of man's body, because first and foremost, both men and women have come from Brahmaji, and from Manu Satrupa, the procreation has happened. And it is from that reference that we understand that woman is the better half of men's body. And why she is better, we're going to dwell a little bit from His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada's purport. So here, there is a lot of things discussed about gratification. So what is gratification? And if there is no gratification, there will be no enthusiasm in life. Like, say, for example, if the food you're eating is not gratifying enough, it's not tasty enough, you're not going to eat in the first place. So when you don't eat in the first place, you may die. So there has to be some gratification in anything you end up doing. Whether you're doing spiritual activity, there has to be some gratification in a very subtle way. But there is also a gross gratification that, if I have to take food which is very tasty, it may not be nutritious enough, but at the end of the day, this may lead me to diabetes and other things. So the gratification has to be there. But we have to understand the difference between the subtle gratification and gross gratification. And there, the concept of I'm living to taste food, which is nothing but the gross gratification, where you're basically eating like a hog. And that is, as it is mentioned in the scriptures, the way you end up behaving yourself in this material world, you'll probably end up becoming one after that. So the propensity to live to eat food versus a subtle gratification, such as I'm tasting, eating to live, is different. So the ability to gratify as we are in this material world is not going to go away. You're probably not going to eat something which you don't like. So you need to get gratified in the first place. But you need to have the subtle gratification. So in that context, we need to understand all of these verses, that we have to eat, we have to have some, because we have senses, we have mind, we have senses, we have intelligence. We are going to get gratified in some form or shape, but it has to be subtle enough so that it doesn't hurt in our spiritual consciousness. So there is a lot of gratification explained here, but whenever we think about eating or any sense gratificatory, it should be minimal in such a way that it doesn't hurt our progress. And then, and in Guruvastakam, beautiful prayers, Chaturvidha Sri Bhagavad Prasada. That means it should be gratifying enough so that the food or the bhoga which is being offered should have the ability to be licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. That is the Chaturvidha. So that means whenever we offer something to the Lord, it should be in the form of something which you can lick, like something like a chutney, or chewed, like khaja or something like that, or drunk like juice, or sucked like different sabjis and things like that. So our Chaturvidha process, the process of offering something, of some delicious food in this context here, the spiritual master is offering on behalf of you. And but any bhoga we end up preparing in our house should have these four attributes. Something we should consider during our, in our bhoga in our homes, your sandhya bhog in your homes, where you constitute the thing which is enthusiastic enough or gratifying enough for the recipient to receive it. And our scriptures thinks about whenever we prepare bhoga, it should be done in such a way that it constitutes some aspect of being licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked, which is nothing but our Chaturvidha uh, bhoga offering process. So that is gratificatory to a subtle degree, so that there is no grossness involved, and you do not eat prasad after it is offered. Bhoga becomes prasad. Before it is offered, prasad was bhoga. It doesn't become gross gratified. So then you end up putting overweight, and then it becomes a challenge. So what is right and what is wrong? So what is sin? In that context, we have to understand that we can give any rationale to anything which has happened in the scriptures by our own consciousness. But what is sin? What is dharma is written in the scriptures as dharma tu sakshat bhagavat pranita. That means whatever the Supreme Personality has exhibited, whatever he has done, that is right. He may steal Rukmini Maharani, but he will not be considered a stealer. He may have stolen the butter. He may be considered Makhanchor, but we have to rationalize it based on his pastimes. We cannot put right and wrong context around his act. Whatever he does, dharma tu sakshat bhagavan pranita. That means anything he has done is religious. So whenever you go from A to B, then it is just a trip, or going from A to B for 7 days, 10 days, 1 month, 2 months. But when he goes to take bath, it is Snan Yatra. When he goes on a yatra from his own house to his aunt's house, it is the Supreme Rath Yatra. And when he comes back, it is Bahurat. So everything he does is done with an intent, and our understanding has to align with that. So whatever he has done, whatever he has said, that is dharma. And trying to put rationalization around using our mental concoctions will not end up having the right outcome. So we have to understand whatever he's saying here in scriptures, that is dharma. Whatever he has spoken in Bhagavad Gita, that is dharma. Dharma tu sakshat bhagavat pranita. That means anything we try to rationalize out of it, he stole, but is not right in our spiritual progress. So why this verse is important is we have to understand this simple aspect, that whatever he is doing, whatever he's exhibiting, whatever he's saying, that is true, that is right, and anything done against that context is actually sin. So with that, how is wife helping husband in the spiritual progress? So in this verse, there are references to 5 pancha yajnas. That means whenever there is wife, she is helping the husband in sacrifices to the Brahma Yajna, which is nothing but sacrifice to Vedas and Rishis. He's also helping in Deva Yajna. Like we are living in this world on a rental basis, and when we are here, we're using various facilities like the rain or the water, like the various activities done by the devas. So we have taken or incurred some credits from various different devas. So we have to repay them. Likewise, we have taken some debt from our ancestors, so we have to repay them. Then also with our fellow men around us, we have, and there are people needy, there are, so we have to repay them because we live in a very social world. We are a social animal. And then we have, when you are going out, you may be stepping on insects, you may going out, you may be stepping on little creatures. So you may be inadvertently killing them, for which you need to have uh, some repayment. So in this activity of repaying our debts from the Vedas and Rishis, from the Devas, from our ancestors, from our fellow men, and from various different creatures, this Pancha Yajna is done. In every step of the way, you will see whenever there is sacrifice, the good wife will be helping you offer it to the Supreme. And these are the Panchajagnas, which is referred here as where the wife helps the husband in taking care of his duties and responsibilities. And this is very common whenever we do any sanskara, you would see all of this happening. And the Panchayagna is a process where you are basically repaying your debt. Otherwise, you're going to leave this world with full of debt, and you might have to come back to really repay the debt. So this Panchayagna, which is explained here, is very relevant, where the wife helps husband in getting rid of debt, in the achieving the spiritual process. And there in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, when a man becomes qualitatively like cats and dogs, he forgets his devotees in cultivating spiritual values. So the dogs and cats, they don't end up having the kind of regulation in their life, and they don't end up getting married. And that is especially described here. And they do not have the spiritual values, they do not cultivate it. And that is very important for us to recognize that if we do not stay regulated, if we do not become more advanced than cats and dogs, we end up becoming like animals. And that is where we are different from animals. So we should try our best, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead has given us a better life, to advance, to recognize who we are, where we have come from, and what is the relationship between where we have come from. But if we do not inquire that in our current life, and we lead a life of very unregulated, which many people do before joining Krishna consciousness, it doesn't help, and we all end up becoming cats and dogs. So as soon as there is a break in personal sense gratification, there is disruption or divorce, which Srila Prabhupada has written several years ago. Because whenever a man thinks he's better off to be an agency of sense enjoyment, and likewise, if the better half thinks the husband as the object of sense enjoyment, then there's a break, and sometimes it doesn't get satisfied for whatever reasons. There is disruption or divorce. This is something which Srila Prabhupada said 50, 60 years ago, but it's so true right now, as more and more people have less and less time, and they do not have the right consciousness to understand their better half, the wife, or the better half understanding the husband. It is leading to lack of understanding, and there is disruption, and there is divorce. And the divorce is so prevalent in this age, which Srila Prabhupada had predicted long back. So therefore, marriage is essential in order to avoid the life of cats and dogs who are not meant for spiritual enlightenment. So The cats and dogs, they're not regulated. They end up, having relationship with multiple partners and so on. So there, as it is unregulated, the marriage is essential, which they don't end up doing, and what the human beings end up doing, so that they avoid the life of cats and dogs, which are not meant for spiritual enlightenment. Very powerful words Srila Prabhupada has written. So here, let's try to understand uh, how we can live or coexist as 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 following the varnashram dharma, and then end up supporting our spiritual progress. So when this wonderful pastime happened, millions of years ago, then Gajendra, who is an elephant which has powers of thousands of elephants, he's the king of elephants at that time. He once went on a picnic to this stream of water. So Gajendra is very powerful. Gajendra has the power of 1,000 elephants. And Gajendra went with his wives, with his kids, with his relatives to play in a picnic mood. So Gajendra went out of land to the water to play. And there he got hold of he was caught by a crocodile, and crocodile caught his legs, as you can see. And this fight went on for thousands of years. It is mentioned in the scriptures in Srimad Bhagavatam. And there, Srila Prabhupada says that when Gajendra, the elephant, is on the land, he was very powerful. He is truly the master of things, what he is doing. But when he is in an uncharted territory, he has started the war. When he started the war, it is very difficult because it's uncharted territory. Likewise, a crocodile who is in the water, that's his territory. That's why, even if he is not very powerful, but as it is a chartered territory and he is aware of the environment the crocodile is in, then he understands how to fight. So when we are actually spirit souls, we are part and parcel of Krishna. We are not the body, we are the soul. So we are spirit souls, but we are in a very wrong place today. We are in this material world. We are exactly like Gajendra, who is in water, very uncharted territory. So that's why Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain in that verse in Srimad Bhagavatam that we are at a war. So it's not just we have war in Ukraine and Russia is fighting it. It's a war right now. We are fighting a war in this material world in a very uncharted territory. So in an uncharted territory, when we fight, it's very difficult to stay with it. So whenever you play any game, for example, cricket or whatever, you play to your strength. You do not play to your weakness. So we are in a very weakened spot here. So this Varnashram Dharma, what is there? Whether we are in the morning, we are doing some sanskara or doing some deity dressing, as a Brahmana, and during the daytime, we are, trying to protect our family by trying to, get some alms by working as or trying to do a service provider like a Vaishya, or trying to do some vacuum cleanup like a Sudra. We are actually maintaining different varnas at any point in time, in different times of the day. Likewise, we are, and some of us, by virtue of the strength, have stayed celibate, and some of them have become grihastha, and some of them have retired, and some of them are taking sannyas. So this Varnashram Dharma is based on one's strength and capabilities. And there is nothing wrong in going from one Varnashram Dharma to another. In ISKCON also, whenever a person changes the ashram, it is not considered a wrong thing, because the end of the day, the idea is to do spiritual progress. The idea is to serve the Supreme. So we are in a very uncharted territory, exactly like how Gajendra was. and he was given a strong fight, and then he has to seek shelter. And that is the lifestyle of all of us. We are in a wrong place. We need shelter. We need someone to really guide us, mentor us. So this Varnashram Dharma in this context, whenever we are with our wife or any of our better halves, we have to be cognizant that it is there for a reason. It is there for our spiritual progress. So likewise, we end up doing any X and Y in this matrix of Varna and Ashram. We are in an IJ cell. If you think of matrix, then we just have to do it right, because we are in a wrong place. And we are trying to make spiritual progress at this time, considering all of us. So there's a lot to talk about, how Varnashram Dharma is related to this verse in the context of making spiritual progress. But here, it is a very clear understanding that when you are in the wrong place, you have weakness, and we have to overcome that weakness. So beautiful verse. A lot can be spoken. It's 7 o'clock, and so some key conclusions we have to take away is not to consider our better half, which is the wife in this example, as a objectification of our senses, but to help us in spiritual progress. And likewise, the wife should help the husband in attaining the total spiritual progress of the family. So with that, I'd like to end here. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anything else we can discuss elsewhere in the group? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much, Hema Jagańnātha. I'd like to wish you all a safe and Krishna conscious day ahead. We'd like to offer our prayers by chanting 3 times Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram,
Ram Ram,
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna,
Ram,
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare
Ram
Ram,
Hare. Shri Narsingho, Jai Narsingho,
Jai Narsingha, Jai Narsingha Deva, Praladeksha, Jai Padmamukha Padma.
Ugram Veda Mahavishnu Jivalatam Sarvamukam Narsingha Vishnu Bhadram Nityam Namami Aham. Nrsimha Bhagwan ki jai, Maharaj ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai. Let's offer our humble obeisances to all the humble Vaishnavas. Vaishnavibhyo namo namo. Thank you, Hema Jagańnātha.
Hare Hare
everyone.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare
Everybody, thank you. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Very nice lecture, Prabhu. Very nice. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, everyone. Hare